We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Tuesday. Had some shit go down yesterday that we're going to talk about. Had a pretty easy day yesterday, though. I didn't put as much attention into social media as I normally do. I mean, I made some posts and shit, but not as much as I normally do. My wife and I just took an easy day today. We did some shopping, drove around for a bit, went out for lunch at one of her favorite restaurants, Granite City. If you've ever been in Minnesota, you know what I'm talking about. And then later on, we have a local restaurant that on Mondays have a special on hamburgers. I've told you before, my wife and I go out and eat a lot. That's what old people's social life amounts to, going out to dinner with friends or whatever, and it's a good time. I mean, we cook at home too. I cook at home. My wife's not much of a cook, never has been, but that's cool. She does a lot of other important things, so it's a fair trade. And I like cooking. I'm not, I'm kind of a utilitarian cook. I'm not a fancy chef or have special recipes. I cook very basic things that my kids have always eaten, that my wife and I always have eaten. We've got the instant pot, so that's a nice way to get some shit done quickly. But anyway, it was kind of an easy day. I didn't focus as much on what was happening in the news as I normally do, although there were a couple of things that are kind of interesting. I think this week, as we get later in the week, we are going to start seeing more things. We know that, and we'll talk about this further. The Eugene Carroll case, they were supposed to have the closing arguments yesterday. They didn't because somebody on the jury may or may not have had COVID. We'll find out more about that. And I presume they're going to start back up today, but we'll see. We know that Judge Engeron is going to be coming up with a final amount that Donald Trump will need to owe for the New York fraud case, the whole Fonnie Willis bullshit, and some other stuff going down in Texas. So we've got plenty to talk about. Now, before we do that, I have a few emails. I love reading the emails. If you're out there and haven't sent an email as yet with a question, comment, or complaint, or whatever, you can do that easily enough by going to rationalboomer@gmail.com. Just send me a note. I look for emails every night. If I have some, I read them, and generally I do, so that's great. If you ever want to be on the program, you can do that. That's very easy. All you do again is email me at rationalboomer@gmail.com, and we'll set up a time. It's a very simple thing. I send you a Zoom link. We talk a little bit before we go on, and then when we go on, we just have a conversation. Nothing really planned, maybe some topics in mind, but we just go with the conversation wherever it goes. It's very simple. And anybody who's ever done the show will tell you that it's a very simple thing to do. So if you'd like to have your voice heard, have some input, send me an email or send me a note and tell me you want to be on the show. So let's get to the emails. First one. I often watch Farron Cousins on the Ring of Fire. I do too. I like Farron. And I'd like to tell you about one of the videos he recently posted. I hope it brings a little bit of comfort to some of the peers out there who are worrying about things. The Biden-Harris campaign raised $97 million in the last 3 months of 2023. Small donors, 200 or less, made up 97% of that amount, and 33% of all donors in 2023 were new since the 2020 campaign. The RNC is struggling to get donors of any size and are going bankrupt. People who work in their Colorado office are more than likely going to be evicted soon because they can't pay their rent. The polls say Dems are behind, but a lot of people are willing to donate their hard-earned money to the cause. They're smoking the repugs. He went on to say that Dems have 117 million available and suggested they start putting their message ads out now. They need to use those millions to get their advantage to advertise their policies, what they've gotten done in 3 years, and of course, attack the Republicans. Kamala is out and about and has been for several months, and I'm excited to see what's on the horizon. Many thanks, Peg HM. And you're absolutely right, Peg. In spite of what the media will tell you, there's a lot going on with the Democratic Party. The fundraising is going very well. The Republicans are doing shit when it comes to fundraising. We talked about on a previous podcast about what Kamala Harris is doing, going out to colleges, now talking to people about the abortion issue. She's reaching the people that are affected by these situations. And they're the younger people, and those are the people that are going to make a difference in the 2024 election and will pretty much control things by the time the 2028 election comes around. So a lot is being done. I mean, there's a lot to be gained by the media telling you, oh, it's close. It's so close. They want to hype this up to keep your attention and keep a little fear in your soul so that you keep watching and keep the ratings up. But the fact of the matter is if you look at past elections, there has never been such a discrepancy between the two parties. Take a look at the Republican Party. Tell me one positive thing that they have going for them that would give them any kind of momentum going into the 2024 election. I know a lot of people would make you think that it's going to be close. I just don't think it's going to be close, only because I don't know how that would possibly be. Sure, the noise is loud from the base about Donald Trump, but the base makes up maybe 25-30% of the country. Certainly not enough to have an impact on this election. We have the Democrats, the moderates, and the conservatives in the Republican Party who want nothing to do with Donald Trump. And that's all assuming whether or not Donald Trump makes it to the nomination and to the general election in 2024. There's a lot of negative things going on with the Republican Party at this point, and they're in fucking trouble, and they fucking know it. Maybe nobody else wants you to believe that, but the facts are the facts. And Peg, thank you for that information. I think that's very valuable and might give some folks some relief. All right. The next email. Hi, Mike. It's been a long time. You may remember me. I'm Jason, the Canadian living in Orlando, Florida. Of course, I remember you. I was on your multi-guest show back in May of 2023. I have been meaning to write you for a while, just been super busy. Rest assured, I've caught pretty much every episode since. I thought it was nice you traveled through Orlando to get to Savannah. We are actually planning to go to Savannah this summer. My daughter is a Girl Scout, and they have a Girl Scout museum there, as that is where it was founded. I like what you said on one of your podcasts following your trip. Florida is a nice place if you disregard politics. Absolutely. It's always been a nice place. That is exactly what I say to people when they ask me what it's like living in Florida, governed by Ron DeSantis. Speaking of which, now that he has dropped out of the presidential race, I think we are starting to come to some interesting crossroads. Now, that is down to Haley and Trump. I presume you are still of the opinion Haley does not have a chance of beating Trump. I'm guessing the outcome of South Carolina will determine her path if she drops out. Do you think Trump will make it out of all the charges brought up against him? No, of course not. He's going to get taken down by most of them. I'm wondering, should the Justice Department manage to take down Trump, would Haley be the Republican nominee? That would mean a Haley versus Biden matchup. Are you still of the opinion Biden would become the winner? Yeah, absolutely. I think Joe Biden can beat any Democrat. I mean, the thing about Nikki Haley is that maybe people aren't as aware as much of her as they are Donald Trump. But if she becomes the nominee, a lot is going to come out. For example, this is the biggest issue of the presidential election, I believe, and that is Roe v. Wade and overturning Roe v. Wade and the abortion rights thing and taking away constitutional rights away from women. I think that's the big issue. I think that's the big loser for the Republican Party. And maybe people don't know this. Maybe the Democrats will think, well, she's not so bad. The thing about it is that she is for making abortion illegal after 6 weeks. No way she wins an election once people are aware of that. And trust me, if she's the only nominee, they will become aware of it. Now, does that mean if Donald Trump is taken out of the equation that Nikki Haley would be the candidate? I don't know. I mean, think about it. Do you think the Republican Party wants a woman of color, of a child of immigrants, to be their representative? I mean, I think if they thought she could win, maybe, but no, I don't think Nikki Haley being the nominee is any any different than if, well, it is different. Donald Trump would be beaten easier, more easily, but Nikki Haley will lose too. Do you think she can get more voters than Biden? No. She's not old. She's not crazy like Trump. She's not crazy like Trump, but she is crazy. She supported Donald Trump from the beginning. She was in his administration. When asked if she would still support him if she were convicted of a crime, or if he were convicted of a crime, she said she would, and she said she would pardon him. Don't tell me she's not crazy. She is fucking crazy, and that will all be um, given further attention if she is the nominee. On the flip side, do you think Republicans, specifically MAGAs, can stomach voting for a woman of color born of immigrants? No, as I said, I don't. Or will they stay out and not vote? That is a distinct possibility. And this is why I think that they're trying so hard to hold on to Donald Trump. Donald Trump is without question a loser in the 2024 election. Donald Trump's got all kinds of baggage. There's a lot of people that won't vote for him. But I think you're exactly right. If Donald Trump isn't the nominee, a lot of these Trump humpers will sit home and not vote at all. And where the problem comes there is down ballot. Now, Donald Trump gets beat for the presidency. That's one thing. But if these people aren't there to vote for the down ballot, they're going to easily lose the House and easily lose the Senate, not to mention governorships and state legislatures. So this is why they continue to hold on to Donald Trump. They know Donald Trump can't win. They might say something other than that, but the fact is they know. And because they know that, they're willing to hold on to him to save the rest of it. But even still, I don't know that they have much chance of that. Like I said, so many questions. Love to hear your thoughts. Yeah. Next time you are in Central Florida area, Orlando, Daytona, would you be interested in an in-person podcast episode? If so, I'll try to reach out to you beforehand. Congrats on the success of the Rational Boomer podcast. It has been great watching it evolve, and you have had some pretty wonderful guests on the show. Take care, Jason. Yeah, if I'm in Orlando or Daytona or something like that overnight, I'd be happy to have you come meet me and do a podcast live. A lot of times, though, I'll land in Orlando, then I'll get in a car and I'll go to Savannah that same day. I may not, I may, I don't know what's going to happen. My wife and I don't really like driving up 95 during the rush hour. It's a pain in the ass. That's why last time when we came back from Savannah, we drove to Daytona, stayed overnight, and then went to Orlando. But if I'm there and you want to connect up, I'm all for it. That's no problem at all. I'm happy to meet with people if given the opportunity and everything works out. All right. The last email goes like this. Good evening, Mike. I'm sure you have already heard about the AI generated Joe Biden robocall in New Hampshire telling people not to waste their vote now, but to save their vote for November. How do you think the White House will respond to this? As always, grateful for your input and look forward to each new episode and TikTok. Judy, Crazy Cat Mom, Portland, Oregon. Yeah, I heard about that. I guess we're going to see more of that stuff, especially when it's coming from the Republican Party. They are known to cheat. Um, as I understand it, Biden isn't even on the ballot in New Hampshire. I'm not sure why that is, or even if it matters. Um, you really need somebody competing against Joe Biden in order for it to be an issue. This is more a Republican thing, not so much a Democratic thing. I know somebody like Dean Phillips is going to go in there and try to get some votes and make some hay over it, but it's not going to work. It's just not going to work. Joe will be on the ballot in South Carolina, and then good luck to anybody that wants to compete with him. As far as Republicans trying underhanded shit, doesn't surprise me, but they're so bad at it and they continually fail over it. I'm not that worried about it. I'm a firm believer in destiny. And I think at this point, everything's set up to go the way it's going to go. Joe Biden will win easily in November. Donald Trump will have been taken down well before then with felony conviction, amongst other things. He will be broke. We're waiting to hear from Judge Engeron as to how much it's going to be. And then we're going to hear from the Judge Kaplan in the E. Jean Carroll case. Donald Trump's going to be going through some things, as he once said. And I don't know that he's going to be able to hold up, honestly. The Republicans can try to do what they want to do, but they continually fail. Remember, they had a president in the White House. They had friends in the DOJ. They had friends in Congress. They had friends in the Supreme Court. They tried to overthrow the government, undermine democracy, and overturn an election, and they still fucking failed. They had everything going for them. There was nothing really stopping them, but they still fucked it up. So I'm not real worried about the Republicans. I mean, we should keep an eye on them and we should keep our thumb on their necks, but I just don't see it happening. I don't see them coming through and accomplishing anything. Remember, in 2020, we knew nothing about this in advance. We didn't expect it, but it happened and they still failed. We're in a much different situation in 2024. We know what they're capable of. We know what to watch for. And because of that, it's going to be that much harder for them to do it. And since they failed the first time, I don't see any chance of them being successful this time around. I don't fucking see it. Just not going to happen. All right, we had some news down in Texas. And as I told you, I'm going down to Texas on February 10th through the 14th, just a few days, because my wife wants to go down there. Wasn't my choice, but I'm happy to go wherever my wife wants me to go. We're going down to South Padre Island, very near the border where Matamoros is. I'm interested to see what it's like down there, but I'm always troubled by what's going on in Texas. Yesterday, a divided Supreme Court allowed Border Patrol agents to resume cutting for now razor wire that Texas installed along a stretch of the U.S. Mexico border that is at the center of an escalating standoff between the Biden administration and the state over immigration enforcement. I'm sure you remember this story. Greg Abbott, the governor, and other folks, the legislature, decided that they would put these floats in the river, the Rio Grande, and put razor wire on them. And of course, people coming across that area got caught up on the razor wire. There were some injuries. It was kind of a dire situation. But what Greg Abbott didn't understand is that Rio Grande River and the border itself is not in the jurisdiction of Texas. It is under federal jurisdiction. So for him to do that was highly illegal. Well, of course, he took it to court. He lost, he appealed, and he appealed again, and they took it to the Supreme Court. Well, yesterday, the Supreme Court voted 5-4, and it clears the way for the Border Patrol agents to cut or clear out concertina wire that Texas has put along the banks of the Rio Grande to deter migrants from entering the U.S. illegally. Now, some migrants have been injured by the sharp wire, and the Justice Department has argued the barrier impedes the U.S. government's ability to patrol the border. including coming to the aid of migrants in need of help. Now, none of the justices provided any explanation for their vote. The one-page order is a victory for the Biden administration, while the lawsuit over the wire continues. Now, Texas Governor Greg Abbott had authorized the wire, one of a series of aggressive measures the three-term Republican has taken on the border in the name of curbing illegal crossings from Mexico. His spokesman said the absence of razor wire and other deterrents encourages migrants to risk unsafe crossing and make the job of Texas border personnel more difficult. So what they're saying is, oh no, we're saving lives out there. We're making it less interesting for them to come across the river where it's also dangerous, and we're saving lives. No, you aren't, motherfucker. You're using draconian methods to punish people. Now, Abbott's spokesman, Andrew Malaris, said this case is ongoing and Governor Abbott will continue fighting to defend Texas's property and its constitutional authority to secure the border. But it's not your jurisdiction. Now, a spokesperson for U.S. Customs and Border Protection did not immediately return a message seeking comment Monday. The Federal Appeals Court last month had forced federal agents to stop cutting the concertina wire. The concertina wire stretches for roughly 30 miles near the border city of Eagle Pass, where earlier this month, Texas Military Department seized control of a city-owned park and began denying access to border control agents. Now, Eagle Park's been one of the busiest spots on the southern U.S. border for migrants illegally crossing from Mexico. Abbott has said Texas won't allow Border Patrol agents into Shelby Park anymore, having expressed the frustration over what he says are migrants illegally entering through Eagle Pass. Now, it's going to be interesting to see what really goes on in that in this situation. It's going to be intriguing, to say the least. You know, Greg Abbott really wants to show that he's the boss, but you can only go so far with this sort of thing. Now, as you might imagine, the people in Texas have not taken this news very well. They're angry about it. Texas lost the case to the Supreme Court. Joe Biden wins. Now, the federal government has been fighting over this for some time. On Monday, as I say, the High Court ruled that the federal government decides border issues, not Texas. That's right. Now residents are demanding that they be allowed to leave the United States altogether. Oh, yeah, we've heard this one all before. Let's secede from the Union. Well, you go ahead and fucking do that. One account on Twitter said Mario Presents declared Texas will secede over this. Do we fucking care, and do we think you'll actually do it? No on both parts. Clint Russell said if the federal government will not allow the state of Texas to control its own border, then the state of Texas has every right to secede. I say go for it. You've been threatening this for years, but you've never actually done it. The top search on the social media site X in political category was secede for over an hour after the ruling. Hours later, the phrase "Remember the Alamo" took over the top spot. Yeah, you remember the Alamo? Texas lost that one. Now, Bob Geiger, for example, pointed out that the state can't even handle a small winter cold snap that would be considered just adorable by upper Midwest or Northeast standards, recalling Donald Trump's fondness for pointing out to shithole countries. He concluded that the Republic of Texas would be atop of all of them. Now, there are a bunch of laughing gifs that were thrown around, while one man identifying himself as the ultra gay biker dad explained the U.S. government would view the state as a sovereign desert nation rich in oil and full of brown people and be like, he said with a nodding Jack Nicholson gif. And did you know that they get federal funding to the tune of $68 billion? What happens when that stops? What happens when you aren't afforded the protections any other state would get from the federal government? Oh, you talk tough now, but it's never going to happen. Nobody with an intelligent mind would do that. I'd love to see a try, though. I'd love you to take 6, 8, 12 months and give it a shot. And I'll guarantee you this, once you did it, you'd be coming back begging to be re-established in the United States of America. You could not survive on your own. Like I said, one cold snap and the electrical grid goes down and you're all fucked. Now, here's a quote: all the people who ain't from here talking it's time for Texas to do whatever have no clue what they're talking about. Arturo Dominguez said. He said, either we are a constitutional republic or we aren't. Abbott violated federal law and the Constitution. Suck it. Also, Texas can't secede, so shut the fuck up. I wonder if all these Texas people saying secede realize that Texas was part of Mexico. Texas declared independence in 1836 and later joined the United States in 1845. I honestly would love to see it become part of Mexico again. Others mocked accounts that kept misspelling secession as succession, knocking the Texas educational system. Yeah, that's the interesting thing about this. It's very much like all Trump-lefucks. They're not very bright. They immediately go to their bullying tactics, making threats. The only problem with it is the Republicans making threats these days, it's not going very far because people are laughing at them instead of being fearful of them. A bully can't win if he can't scare somebody. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, the idea that Texas would try to secede, that doesn't bother me. First of all, I know they'll fail. Second of all, I know they'll never get enough people to get behind it to do it. And lastly, if they did it, they'd fucking fail miserably. So talk all you want. Like Arturo said, Greg Abbott broke federal law and he was told not to do it anymore. What more do you have to say about this situation? I mean, what more has to be said? Greg Abbott has constantly been doing things that are against our federal government, and that in itself should be looked at. That is something he should be held accountable for. You know, from taking groups of migrants and sending them to other states and basically trafficking, human trafficking. That's what Greg Abbott's guilty of. Breaking federal law, that's what Greg Abbott is guilty of. And here he is, a governor of a very large state. I don't know what it's going to take for Texans to get this dumb motherfucker out of there, but don't you think it's about time? Texas is a great state. There's some beautiful areas and some wonderful people in Texas. But like Ron DeSantis in Florida, Greg Abbott is destroying Texas. Now, you can have Republicans and you can have Democrats, but this adversarial attitude just isn't going to work. It's not going to be beneficial to the state. The state is struggling now because of the leadership they currently have. So maybe it's time to get some better leadership. Get Ted Cruz the fuck out of there. He may be out. He's not looking good in the polls in the upcoming Senate election. Greg Abbott, I don't even know how much time he has, but whatever it is, it's too fucking long. I'm not saying you need to get Democrats in place, but you need to get people of a reasonable mind with some humanitarian mindset. You need people that aren't racist. I mean, for God's sake, Texas has a lot of Hispanic people in it. Why would you be racist against a large portion of your constituency? Makes no fucking sense. It's ridiculous. It's all performative so that you can appeal to the evangelicals and the white supremacists in this country. We need to put those people where they belong, back under their rocks, take them out of power. They have no power other than with the Republican Party. But as long as somebody like Greg Abbott or Ted Cruz or Ron DeSantis are in power, they will continue to patronize these fucks. So we need to get them out. And once that's done, things should at least start to get back to where they should be. All right. We are going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. All right, we're getting more information about this little mess, this dust up, if you will, down in Georgia. A judge on Monday ordered court records to be made public in the divorce involving a special prosecutor hired in the election case against Donald Trump and others, and accused of having an affair with Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis. I know a lot of people are really worried about this, that this is somehow going to blow up the case. I think it's going to be basically what Republicans call a nothing burger. Even if there was an affair, given the circumstances, I don't know how it has any bearing on the court case at all. This is a bunch of noise, and this sounds a lot like something the Republicans are behind. And if that is the case, the lawyer and the soon-to-be ex-wife of Wade and the lawyer for the co-defendant of Donald Trump, they might be running into some problems. Now, the newly unsealed court records, however, didn't include any references to the affair allegations that have roiled the case that charges Trump and 18 allies of working to overturn the 2020 election loss in the state of Georgia. Nothing. Wouldn't you think if an affair was part of the deal, that would be a distinct part of the allegations in the documentation for the divorce? I would think so. Now, the judge ordered the unsealing of the divorce case involving Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade after a request brought by a defense attorney who alleges an inappropriate relationship between Willis and Wade. The judge also put off a final decision on whether Willis will have to sit for questioning in the divorce case, but delayed her deposition that had been scheduled for Tuesday. Well, why would you have her sit for questions if she doesn't show up in the documentation, if she isn't part of the divorce? Now, Willis has defended her hiring of Wade, who has little prosecutorial experience and has not directly denied a romantic relationship. She has accused Wade's estranged wife of trying to obstruct her criminal election interference case against Trump and others by seeking to question her in the couple's divorce proceedings. See, they're doing the same thing to her that they're trying to do to Joe Biden. They're trying to stain the image of Fani Willis, somehow create some confusion and chaos, But there is no evidence that we've seen as yet. People thought, oh, if they unseal the documents, that'll show some evidence. Turns out there's no evidence there. The affair allegations threatened to taint the prosecution, with the Republican primary frontrunner and others seizing on the claims to attack the case and Wade's qualifications as a prosecutor. Trump has pled not guilty, denied any wrongdoing, and called the charges politically motivated. Now, Willis was served with a subpoena to sit for a deposition in the divorce case the day that defense attorney Ashley Merchant, who represents former Trump campaign staffer, one-time White House aide Michael Roman, filed a motion earlier this month alleging the romantic relationship between Willis and Wade. Documents filed in court show Wade bought plane tickets in Willis's name, and Jocelyn Wade's lawyer has argued there appears to be no reasonable explanation for their travels apart from a romantic relationship. See, if he's working for her and she's sending him around places, it's conceivable that she would buy the tickets, or the court would buy, the district attorney's office would buy it, and she's head of the district attorney's office. But see what they're doing exactly what Republicans are doing to Joe Biden. Well, we don't have any evidence, but there must be something there. Now, Jocelyn Wade's lawyer, Andrea Dyer Hastings, told the judge on Monday that they believe Willis has some unique personal knowledge related to the divorce case and should be subject to questioning. She's trying to hide under the shield of her position, Hastings said of Willis. I got to be honest with you, Fani Willis is a smart woman, and she is not one to be fucked with. If there is nothing here, these motherfuckers are in some trouble, because this is tantamount to obstruction of justice. And if they are obstructing justice or making this difficult for Fani Willis unwarranted, Fani's going to have a hell of a good time. Cinque Axam, a lawyer for Willis, said the issue before the court is how to divide the marital assets, and the determination of how that should be done has nothing to do with Willis, who doesn't share any accounts with Nathan Wade and doesn't determine how he spends his money. As I told you before, as I understand this whole divorce was brought up because apparently his wife cheated on him with his best friend. I don't know for certain that's true. I haven't seen any verifications, but it's interesting that the documents that have been unsealed make no reference to any kind of affair. And even if there was an affair, the fact that she had one first, that has to have some bearing. And the most important part of this is, what does that have to do with Donald Trump being a fucking criminal? Nothing. During a brief hearing in the Cobb County Superior Court, Judge Henry Thompson said he can't rule on whether Willis should have to sit for a deposition in the divorce case until after Wade himself is questioned later this month. In ruling that court documents in the divorce case must be made public, he said. A previous judge improperly ordered the case to be sealed without holding a hearing. Why do you think it was sealed? I think it was probably sealed because Wade and his wife probably wanted it sealed. Maybe some embarrassing things for both parties. Maybe they don't want their financial situation exposed. Now, Jocelyn Wade's lawyer wrote in a court paper filed Friday that Nathan Wade has taken trips to San Francisco and Napa Valley, Florida, Belize, Panama, and Australia, and Caribbean cruises since filing for the divorce, and that Willis was an intended travel partner for at least some of these trips, as indicated by flights he purchased for her to accompany him. Again, what's that got to do with the fucking tea in China? The filing includes credit card statements that show Nathan Wade, after he'd been hired as a special prosecutor, bought plane tickets in October of 2022 for him and Willis to travel to Miami, and bought tickets in April to San Francisco in their names. So what are you saying? First of all, Fani Willis is not married. Fani Willis has been divorced for 15, 20 years. This guy is in the middle of a divorce. He's separated from his wife. If they did date, so the fuck what? It's one of 4 cases Trump is facing as he vies to return to the White House. Prosecutors are using a statute normally associated with mobsters, being the RICO case. This, like everything else we see out of Republicans, it's just a bunch of fucking noise. Let's say there was some kind of affair between the two. One is in the process of being divorced and the other one is single. So what? So the fuck what? It isn't the smartest move for Fani Willis to get involved in something like that because, well, just this situation. But that doesn't make it illegal. That doesn't change anything with regards to Donald Trump's case or the RICO case in general. So, what's going to come out of it? I know a lot of people are nervous about it. Don't be nervous about it. For one thing, the worst it could do is delay it. Say they kick Fani Willis out of there for whatever stupid reason. There's still other people in the district attorney's office that will take control of it. The fact of the matter is, Fani Willis wasn't probably going to prosecute this anyway. The people that work for her were. And so that doesn't change anything. And it certainly doesn't make Donald Trump guilty or a reason to drop the case. We'll see what happens to Fani Willis. We'll find out what she was involved with this Wade character and to what extent. But again, it really has no bearing on the case. And legally speaking, I don't think any court would find any issue with the case proceeding. This is just an attempt to make noise and try to taint Fani Willis and try to create chaos and maybe some delay. That's really all it is. All right. Donald Trump was supposed to have the closing arguments in his defamation case yesterday. There was some talk that Donald Trump might even testify or do whatever the fuck he does, make noise in the middle of the court case and get shut down by the judge, no doubt. But it was postponed yesterday. A possible coronavirus outbreak in former President Donald Trump's civil defamation hearing may have both foiled his campaign plans and spoiled his chances for a favorable outcome in the trial. Now, court was canceled Monday after one of 9 jurors overseeing E. Jean Carroll's federal lawsuit against Trump reported feeling COVID-19 symptoms and was dismissed. Trump's lawyer, Alina Habba, also reported feeling unwell. Yeah, I'd feel unwell too if my career was on the line after being a fucking idiot. Trump had been expected to take the stand. The judge ordered a 1-day adjournment and plans to resume today, the day of the New Hampshire primary. So that's going to make it interesting. He wants to show up in court, but it was delayed 1 day, and now it's going to start up again on the same day today as the New Hampshire primary. Well, that's inconvenient to Donald Trump, but who the fuck cares? Now, according to Honig, who was speaking on CNN, Trump suffered 2 losses, primarily the chance to make what he considers a stump speech from the courtroom ahead of the New Hampshire primary on Tuesday. Yeah, he was trying to do that, maybe grift some money as well. Now, Trump has been approaching this whole trial and the other ones as political opportunity. He doesn't have money to do the typical advertising. It's all going into legal fees. So he's taking advantage of these court cases so he can speak out and make these political stump speech. Legally speaking, there's no reason for Donald Trump to take the stand. There's no reason Donald Trump even has to go. Now, Trump also suffered a blow with the losses of the 9th juror, Honig argued. Ellie Honig, an MSNBC legal analyst. The civil court trial, which is to determine damages as Trump, has already been found liable. He's already lost this case. Now it's just a matter of trying to figure out how much he's going to owe. Now, they only need 6 jurors to continue. So if this juror decides 2/6 to show up, that's okay. That would leave them with 8 jurors, and that's more than enough to continue the case. However, the jurors must come back with a unanimous verdict, which means every person on the panel is someone who might refuse to rule against Trump. But that hasn't been the case up to this point. That hasn't been the case at all. And just to add to his chances of losing, Donald Trump spent Monday morning going on yet another unhinged tirade against E. Jean Carroll, defaming her again, which Might cost him another fucking defamation case. He apparently doesn't care. Now, after the judge in the writer's defamation case against the indicted former president ordered a last minute delay of the trial. Now, what's interesting, Elise Stefanik was screaming about this. This is election interference because it's on the same day as the primary. She was screaming, this isn't fair. This isn't right, until somebody took her aside and said, listen, bitch, this whole thing was precipitated by Donald Trump's legal team. They're the ones that wanted the delay, because that's what they're all about, is delays. And I imagine Elise Stefanik saying what Gilda Radner said back in the 70s when she played Emily Latella. Oh, never mind. And so Elena Haba apparently sick too, and I would be willing to bet she just took an opportunity in hopes of delaying this even further. So U.S. District Judge Lewis Kaplan announced on Monday that the trial will be delayed by at least a day due to one of the 9 jurors in the case feeling unwell. Kaplan is awaiting COVID-19 test results for all the jurors. Trump attorney Alina Habba also reported not feeling well after visiting her parents, at least one of whom has COVID-19. I was supposed to have lunch today with family members on my wife's side. My brother-in-law tested positive for COVID-19. So they thought, well, let's get together. Anyway, we'll let him stay home. But his wife has been exposed to him. I don't want to be exposed to COVID-19 and ultimately expose my grandchild to said COVID-19. If your folks have COVID-19, why would you go there? Sure, you can be concerned and sure you can call them or Zoom with them or something, but why would you expose yourself to COVID-19? I hope you got the vaccination. Bet you didn't. Now, according to Kaplan, Haba and law partner Michael Medeo both tested negative for the virus on Monday, and neither of them wore a mask in court. Of course, they didn't. There is no indication that Trump is feeling physically unwell, and the former president also did not wear a mask in court on Monday. It's unclear when the trial will resume. At least one day, so it could be Wednesday, it could be Friday, who knows? Trump's legal team is asking Kaplan to postpone the Republican frontrunner's next court appearance until after the New Hampshire presidential primary on Tuesday. The judge did not immediately rule on that request on Monday. Again, what we're looking at is a second defamation of character case. He lost the first one to the tune of $5 million. This time around, they're asking for $10 million. It wouldn't be surprising that they offered more, the jury awarded more, mainly because Donald Trump has been flapping his gums a lot. And the lawyer for E. Jean Carroll has said, look, he got fined $5 million. He didn't stop. He's in court again for maybe up to $10 million. He didn't stop. The question is, how much is it going to take for him to stop? What is something that can be found, and what kind of award can be made to actually have an impact on Donald Trump? So as much as E. Jean Carroll is asking for $10 million, it's conceivable they would go after more to put a stop to this bullshit. Now, Trump is expected to take the witness stand in this case, though Kaplan has ruled that because of last year's verdict, the former president cannot accuse Carroll of lying or about being sexually abused while he testifies, which would be the only reason he'd want to testify. But facing a defamation trial has not stopped Trump from repeatedly going on tirades against E. Jean Carroll. Kaplan even threatened to kick Trump out of the courtroom last time he was in the courtroom after he kept loudly complaining to his lawyers that the trial is a witch hunt. Now, of course, afterwards, the president, former president Donald Trump, also held press gaggles outside the courthouse and gone on diatribes on social media platform Truth Social to attack Carol for her accusations. A tirade he unleashed online last Tuesday was entered into the court record. So this is something that the jury will have a chance to go over. And it's certainly not going to help him, but nothing Donald Trump helps him at all. Now, in the span of 1 hour, the former president made at least 42 posts on Truth Social attacking Carol on Monday morning. Many of those posts include screenshots of posts Carol made on social media in roughly the past decade that involve the topic of sex, something Trump has done before when attacking her. But again, this is all just pointless. He's trying to prove himself innocent when he's already been found guilty of it. He's been found liable of sexual abuse and defamation of character. He can try to say whatever he wants to say, but that's not going to change the verdict at this point. What he's actually trying to do is trying to carry the narrative and try to win the court of public opinion. He's trying to get people to believe that he never did this stuff. Well, the court of law has found he has. So we'll see what in fact happens. And it's not looking good for Donald Trump. He just can't help himself. He's constantly damaging himself every time he opens his mouth. But he thinks he's so smart. He thinks he's so smart that he can get himself out of this, and he will never get himself out of this. Donald Trump has looked pretty foolish over the last couple of weeks. He's been having trouble with his cognitive ability. Donald Trump is talking about gas prices, for example. He says gas prices will cripple America. But right after the election, if that ever happened, you just better hope to God it doesn't happen when he gets in, because he's destroying this country. This is what Donald Trump said about Joe Biden, in spite of the fact that we know the economy is pretty good. Now, the less than precise logic has drawn some eyebrow raising at time, Trump's mental stability. Now, ABC News' John Carl marveled at the fact that Trump has made multiple gaffes in recent days. There have been several moments on the campaign trail where he seemed, quite frankly, out of it. There's no question he has. Trump is currently 77 years old. He blamed Republican presidential opponent Nikki Haley for rejecting security offered by his administration on January 6 and accused Haley of ridding the evidence or hiding the evidence. Haley had nothing to do with January 6th. She wasn't in office. Trump presumably mixed her up with Nancy Pelosi and Haley, but the fact of the matter is he said it 4 or 5 times. He never corrected it. And oddly enough, nobody around him suggested that he correct it. Then he goes on in this other rampage. They destroyed all of the information, all of the evidence, everything, deleted and destroyed all of it. What evidence? All the evidence was given to the January 6th committee. January 6th committee gave it to the DOJ, and the January 6th committee even published it. When asked what evidence they're hiding or did they destroy, they can't come up with an answer to that. Now, Haley shot back to make her opinion crystal clear, saying Trump's fitness between the ears isn't up to snuff, which is saying something because up till recently, Haley hasn't had the courage to go after Donald Trump. But now she's kind of at the point where she has to. It's just him and her. If she doesn't go after him, she's going to get her ass kicked. Well, she's going to get her ass kicked anyway. Some people are thinking that Nikki Haley could win in New Hampshire. And, maybe that's possible, but so what? She probably is not going to win in South Carolina. That's a month away. And Donald Trump is going to dismantle her between now and then. Most of what he'll say is probably not true, but we know that doesn't matter to the base. Truth isn't an issue. Now, this is what she said. The concern I have is I'm not saying anything derogatory, no, because you're gutless and you won't go after Donald Trump. But when you're dealing with pressures of the presidency, we can't have someone else that we question whether they're mentally fit to do this. And even President Joe Biden hit back at his former and possibly future foe. I don't agree with Nikki Haley on everything, but we agree on this. She is not Nancy Pelosi, he posted in a tweet. Now, November 30th, 2020, weeks after the election, the national gas price average crept up to 2 cents to $2.12. The country was still in the doldrums of COVID-19 pandemic. Gas prices went down. Back around that time, I think I even paid like $1.75 one time, but it had nothing to do with the president, whether it be Donald Trump or Joe Biden or anybody else. It had to do with fewer cars were on the roadways. People weren't traveling around as much because of the lockdown. Now, today, the national average for a gallon of gas is at 307. In Trump world, the entire gas industry went off the rails and started shooting up. It did go up because of the supply chain and because of greed and that sort of thing. But the fact of the matter is that it's now coming down and it's coming down quickly. I bought gas today and I think I paid $2.80. It's under $3. So the idea that gas prices are out of control and we're going to go to hell in a handbasket because of gas prices is absolutely ridiculous. But when's the last time Donald Trump ever bought a gallon of gas? He doesn't know fuck all from fuck all. Now, MSNBC's Morning Joe had a lot of fun at the expense of Representative Elise Stefanik, big supporter, Donald Trump, who is, and they're thinking she might be his running mate. Now, after they play a clip of Stefanik being confronted about Trump's mental acuity, he repeatedly confused presidential candidate and his former UN ambassador, Nikki Haley, with Pelosi. This is how that conversation went. Stefanik says, "This isn't a mix-up. The reality is," reporter said, "she wasn't the speaker." Stefanik said, "Nikki Haley is relying on Democrats just like Nancy Pelosi to try to have a desperate showing in New Hampshire. This is like I've said before. Whenever Donald Trump talks, all the Republicans have to be apologists and say, what I think he really meant. How about if Donald Trump just says exactly what he means?" The reporter said, "But he was talking about January 6th. Stefanik says, "President Trump has not lost his step. He's a stronger candidate, stronger than he is today than he was in 2016 and he was in 2020. Compare that to Joe Biden's weakness." Well, I got to be honest with you. If you compared the two, there is no comparison. Now, Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski, the co-host, laced into the GOP rep, mocking her blind devotion to the ex-president. Brzezinski said, "I can't tell you how disappointing I feel every time I see her talk." Scarborough said, "She's a joke. She's a clown." Brzezinski said, "Republican Congresswoman Elise Stefanik." Scarborough then went on to say, "What a clown. What a clown. He confuses former President Barack Obama. He thinks he's running against Barack Obama. Elise, and you know it. And if you say anything otherwise, you're lying through your teeth. He confused Nikki Haley with Nancy Pelosi on January 6th. And if you say anything else, you're lying through your teeth. For what? He's not going to pick you as vice president. Give up the ghost, Elise." Now, here's where the real mocking began when Scarborough and Brzezinski made sure to pronounce Stefanik's name over and over again so the audience could hear it in the back. Brzezinski said, "Yeah, that was her coming to the defense of Donald Trump and Elise Stefanik. He was so appreciative of Elise Stefanik, the woman, Elise Stefanik. Yeah. Okay, he knows her really well. They've been with each other forever." Right. I mean, he's reportedly considering her for his possible vice president. Scarborough says, yeah. So he praised her. He knows Stefanik really, really well, and he's all with it. This is all sarcastic, of course. Now, here is Trump offering his praise of the Congresswoman from New York. He didn't really say much. He went off on tangents and was impossible to understand. You can talk about Joe Biden all you want, but Donald Trump is the one that's losing it. He's lost more than a step. He's got some big problems cognitively. And I will tell you this, it's likely to get worse before it gets better, without question. He's starting to slide down that slippery slope right now, and it's not looking good for him. These Republicans will constantly try to excuse them up until the point where they won't be able to do it anymore. The end for Donald Trump will be disastrous, whether it be being broke, going to jail, or emotionally and physically breaking down. One or all of those things are going to happen over the next 10 months. Donald Trump will not be the nominee. He just can't take what's ahead. He's already showing the signs of the debilitation of the pressure that's on him. And I suspect we're going to see the decline happen fairly quickly at this point. He's too old. He's too mentally broken, emotionally broken, and this is going to tear him down ultimately. All right, we're going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to listen. I hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.